It's Tehachapi time. Key Budge, Corey Costello, Greg Garrett. Guys, how are you?
Wonderful.
Doing good, Key. Thank you. I don't know why I hesitated, and I looked at Corey, and usually I say hello first. I'm not sure why.
I usually introduce you first and then Corey.
You
this
do.
time
Yeah.
I kind of flipped it.
Yeah.
And today we're going to talk about some different utility type things. And we brought in our utility expert, Jay Schlosser. Jay, welcome back to Tehachapi.
Good morning.
We want to talk about, there was 3 topics, and maybe we'll go beyond that, but we want to talk about SCE briefly, AT&T cell service, and race communications. So those 3 topics we want to touch on because I pay attention to what the community's talking about. I have a lot of interaction with the community through different events that we go to, conversations that take place. So I just wanted to briefly kind of touch on things. Here recently, Edison, we had a power outage, and it was a car accident. It was a vehicle that took out a power pole, and a portion of the community in the greater Tehachapi area lost power for an extended period of time. So I wanted to kind of go over how people can receive notifications, because there was a lot of questions that even came to the city and said, hey, what's going on with my power? And I was not aware of a power outage because the city was not impacted by this, and this was in the unincorporated area. But I thought it might be important to just talk about the fact that you can receive notifications when there are power outages for your specific address. Do you guys get notifications?
From SCE. So sometimes it's after the event, which is a little frustrating, but it's kind of random. Way better than it used to be when we started this called PSBS event a couple years ago. Really, SCE has transformed into something a lot more efficient, I believe. So thank you to SCE for that. But still today, it's a little bit off kilter.
You know, I was one of the ones affected by the power outage last night. Came back on at 8:45, and so a huge shout out to the local crews. And this, I think, that went off about 3:30 with the accident happened. And in a little over 5 hours, they had the pole replaced and the power back on, which is awesome. Those guys,
it was a big deal because Highline was closed,
Yeah,
so they
those
must
guys
have
killed
had
it.
some big equipment out there.
Amazing job by the local boots on the ground to get it done. But right before we started this podcast, some 11 hours after my power came back on, I just got a voicemail saying my power's back on. I mean, and this is really no joke. I can play it if you want. I mean, 9:02 a.m. I got it, and it was back on at 8:45 last night. So that's kind of odd to Greg's point.
That's a little strange. Yeah. No, we had the power outage at our house when the big storm came through here, a week
Last
or
week,
2 ago?
yeah.
Yeah, and lost it in the middle of the night. I'd echo the same thing you'd say, Corey. The local crews were out. I mean, it's tough to go out and work when it's dumping cats and dogs or snowing or ice or
Lightning.
something like that. Like that's what those guys get paid to do, and they do a great job doing it. You don't always get those notifications in an intelligent way where you're kind of like, well, I know when the power's back on. You know, it's more the, hey, getting that information about how long it'll take and when it'll get put back
so
together.
Keith, there were a lot of residents outside of the city limits that were affected, and they were looking to the city for assistance or pushing or trying to figure out answers, and we're happy to help facilitate that. But I think there are some...
I think are people confused now because the PSPS a few years ago, when it was happening, there was always communication about this circuit, this circuit, this circuit. Now I think anytime there's an outage, especially this time of year, when this historically has been the PSPS time, although we've had a little more moisture the last few weeks, they automatically default to, well, no one told me my power was getting like they think it was PSPS when, like Jay said, there was a storm a week ago with lightning strikes, and then there was a car accident. And so I think if Edison doesn't get it out right away that this was a car accident, and then people automatically assume it's PSPS, and they look to you, Key, basically as the PSPS expert for what's going on, you know?
Well, and then what I was able to do is to go to SCE.com on my phone, go to outage notifications, find the map so I could see the impact area. It didn't have an answer other than it was under repair. So I had that. The other thing that you have is there is an app called Pulse Point, and it gives notifications. So the Edison notification was on Pulse Point. They also get the fire department's notifications. So Pulse Point is a good app. Take a look at it if it works for you, if you like to have apps on your phone. You can go to SCE.com and sign up for notifications that are address specific. You log into your account and you can ask for notifications for upcoming repairs, when there's an outage, or to report an outage. So SCE.com, and you can deal with Edison directly. But Pulse Point is another way. If you see smoke in the air and you want to find out, Kern County Fire Department reports it and it ends up showing up on Pulse Point. And this Edison notification for the outage was on Pulse Point also. So throw out that. I haven't used the app, but a lot of members of the community do. I've seen it referenced multiple times, and it gives incident information. So someone's tracking what's being reported.
I have that
officially.
app on my phone, and it's handy. But also, if you're curious, you can just find out, because it always amazes me. People go to social media and they'll kind of blast out what's going on, or I suppose that's a tool for certain people. But why not just call or find out directly from the source?
And
Odd to
done.
me. Odd to me.
I just added it.
Oh, did you add Pulse Point?
But does it? I mean, in the long run, though, does it? Obviously, PSPS events, if they and they're going to let you know in advance, the power's going to be shut off. You can plan accordingly. But like yesterday, the power was just out, and does it really matter why it's out? I mean, it's out, and when it comes back on, it'll be back on. I just don't. I think there's a lot of folks that I have to know why my power's out. Does it really matter? Because it's just out. When it's back on, the lights will come back on.
And I'll further that, Corey. Each of us have a phone with us today. We are all instant information access. We get it. We want to know when things happen.
Yeah.
Our society has become that. We get an instant source of information. The best thing, I think, is let's try and get it from the source so there's no third party or versions of telephone that take place. Because when you get it from someone who heard it from someone who heard it from someone, it's not quite exactly where it originated.
Yeah.
So I'm guilty of that. I kind of want to know pretty quickly when something happens, and I think that's what we've created in our society, this immediate need for the information.
Maybe it's because yesterday I knew it was a car accident, and then I'm like, okay, just went home and figured out, okay, how am I to cook dinner in the dark and keep the kids entertained? And I didn't really care about the timeline because I knew it's going to take a while to repair it. I just know that.
But the key point of that was you knew it was a car accident. So as soon as you knew it was a car accident, you knew there was things that were out of your control, out of your hands, and it took physical boots on the ground to make a repair. Change your mindset. If you didn't know and you just knew the power was out, I think that's when you start getting a little bit wiggly in your chair going, hey, what the heck is going on?
The storm a week ago, the lightning was coming on, and when the lights start to flicker, it's basic knowledge. Well, lightning and electricity don't necessarily mix, and when my power went out, I said, oh, the power's out. Something got hit, transformer, whatever it may be. It's going to be out until it's back on. I wasn't too concerned, but I don't know. Some people probably want a better schedule.
And then we'll just throw out real quick that our Tehachapi Police Department sends out notifications via Nixle. You can sign up for Nixle to get those notifications, and you can just text the word Tehachapi to 888-777, and then that way you can get notifications if Chief Krager and his team need to put out notifications. And he does that, keeps it really kind of for very important or urgent notifications. So he doesn't send out, you're not going to be on a spam list. It's only when he needs to get information out. So we'll throw that out as well. I want to transition over to AT&T cell service, because there are conversations that take place off and on. I'm a former AT&T cell customer.
I think there are a lot of former AT&T, and I hope AT&T is listening to this. A lot of former AT&T customers in this town.
I made the switch finally and went to Verizon, where I get cell service everywhere. But AT&T, I was literally, AT&T was my first carrier, or a transit, whatever company they purchased, and it might have been LA Cellular.
I was an LA Cellular customer. That was my first cell phone. LA Cellular, then Singular. Than AT&T.
But if you think back to how long AT&T and cell phones have been around, sometime in the 90s or 2000, whatever.
2000 when they took over that, they bought those and became a cell phone carrier,
20 plus years. And then we don't have all of a sudden cell service drops off the face of the earth here in Tehachapi. Jay, help us understand
for 20
years, AT&T
though,
cell service issues.
Yeah, the dead spots have been the same for 20 years though.
No, it's not good. It's AT&T. It's not for lack of trying to expand services in this area, but they haven't been able to put it together. I don't know that I can tell you the reason why. Other than larger company issues, and who knows what those are.
And so we're going to set the record straight. This is not a city issue.
No, sir.
Right? This is not a delay in a permit or something.
And people ask us,
sort.
they'll stop and say, "You got to do something about AT&T cell service."
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me go work for AT&T. I don't work
actually,
for AT&T.
my comment would be, you have no idea how much we've done to try to get AT&T. So let me maybe run it down for you guys. We have been attempting to kind of get to the finish line with an AT&T cell tower, an additional one in this valley, in the Tehachapi Valley, to serve this area, probably for 7 or 8 years now. So it started with an iteration. They had a fully entitled and permitted new tower to be placed on the rock pile. You guys know where that's at, right? Just north
Rodeo
of the
Center.
airport. Yeah, next to the rodeo grounds, on that literal pile of rocks that we have very aptly named the rock pile. Anyway, and so they had a fully permitted, ready to go. Never built it. It just literally never got built. No one came in to do the next step, which is, okay, now I have my approvals. Let me hire the contractor and go do it. Don't know why. Then they came to us and talked about co-locating, which, by the way, is the process of putting multiple cell carriers on a single tower. That's called co-location. Usually one carrier or a third-party company that's not a cellular provider owns the tower and then leases or rents space to would-be tenants, right? Seriously entertained co-locating to the existing tower on that same rock pile, and they couldn't get the negotiation done with the owner of the tower. The city was like, on board, ready to go, let us know. This doesn't even require planning commission or city council. It is just permit ready. If you're just going to go hang some extra antennas on the tower, let us know when you're ready to start. In the meantime, Verizon built another tower on that rock pile. They got that done in the last several years. No problem, went through the process and got approved. So, little hiccups there. One of the things that people don't understand is that AT&T, all these cell providers, I don't ever talk to AT&T. I don't ever talk to Verizon. I don't ever talk to T-Mobile. I always talk to a third-party company who is a facilitator of some sort. So they all work through third-party companies that come to us and say they represent AT&T and are wanting to build a tower. So that makes it tough, right? Because those companies don't care about whether you, the guy who lives over on F Street, has good cell service or not, right? Because they're not the company that cares. They're the company that's been hired to put a tower in. So we got those, and then they've come to us a couple of years ago and said, okay, we can't get the rock pile to work. We want one of these third-party companies. We want to get another tower in town. So we have regulations that manage how we do that. I think we've talked about those on previous episodes of this, like how we manage that stuff. And so there's a process, and our code, this is an interesting little tidbit, the code desires that we put cell towers on public property if possible. And the reason for that is we're all paying the bills when we carry these little things around in our pockets. And so our philosophy is that the money ought to return to the public if possible, meaning we'd prefer a public property so that, the revenue from that lease can go back to the Parks District or the school district or the city.
And it's big money.
Yeah.
It's not pennies. It's tangible money.
No, $3,000, $4,000 a month, kind of a common lease rate for a tower location, so, and always changing.
Sounds to me like you should put an antenna on the football field, football goalposts, so we can
just make the goalposts
grab some
antennas.
revenue.
Yeah.
For stadium improvements. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Well, So they came to us, and so we began doing a site selection maybe 3 or 4 years ago with them, trying to find spots. And so we are sending them lists, going here. How about city owns this spot? Parks owns this. This is this one. We're trying to pick and choose good spots. Like, parks aren't great. They can be fine, but a tiny little park in the middle of a dense neighborhood, it's not the best spot.
They want some elevation, right? Get the signal up, that kind of thing.
And they care, right? So they then take that larger list of spots and then begin to winnow it down because the geometry of it, the telemetry of it, I'm just choosing fancy words that I don't know whether they apply here.
Yeah. You're smart, Jay.
Yeah,
You're smart.
I'm trying to, did that sound good?
Yeah.
It did sound like I knew what I was talking about.
It's the waveology of the
So we identified a site at the school district owns that maintenance yard on Valley Boulevard, right just west of the high school. I don't know if they got a metal building there, but they actually own
Snyder meets Valley.
But they actually have 20 acres there. They don't just have just the spot where that little metal building is. They own a big piece. So we said, this is a perfect spot. It's in the middle of an open field. It's next to the sports fields at the high school, and so they went way down the road. We went through the permitting and approval process. It went to, you guys remember, it went to the council even, and made the newspaper. Hey, found a new service spot.
School district was on board.
And there was a ton of work, by the way, too, from our between Jay and our planner. There was a lot of work back and forth.
We had to rezone the land.
There was a rezoning. There was, design. We got to make the trees look right because they wanted to do, the fake tree thing, which is fine, but you don't want it just sitting by itself. You had to put some real trees next to it. There was a ton of work that went into this project.
Yeah, so we were excited to see it go, and then I guess I wasn't there at the meeting, but I guess that they had never actually signed the lease with the school district, and so subsequent to all the approvals, it went back to be signed in front of the school district board, and they voted against signing the lease. And so project over in an instant, in a single vote, and I mean, I guess that's the way things happen. It was pretty disappointing for us because we thought that AT&T was happy. It was a good site for them. It's kind of middle of town. It was going to fix all especially the downtown connectivity issues, and so back to the drawing board we went, and we're still working with them. They're now focused on a co-location of a tower that's on Highline near Denison. You guys know where that's at? I probably need to ping them. It's been a month or two since I've heard from them. That's a challenging site for us for some regulatory reasons.
There's already a cell tower there.
Correct.
From years ago.
It's T-Mobile owns that one.
T-Mobile, okay.
Yeah. So we've talked about it. The zoning's not a great fit, although it's not a bad spot. I readily admit, but we've got a lot of regulations about where we put towers for very good reasons.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So trying to work through those issues, not sure quite where they're at, but I'm thinking that perhaps AT&T's gotten a little disheartened with things not getting delivered here.
Well, they probably don't have very many customers left, so why put in more towers?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Maybe that's why you can't get a hold of them.
Yeah. Maybe.
They're not getting your call.
But I mean, I get people that come in here to visit me all the time from out of town, and half of them have AT&T, right? Because it's one of the major carriers, and they come into this building, they're like, "What the heck's wrong with my phone?"
Yeah.
And I go, "Yeah, it's a dead zone here. Yeah, we live in a 21st century."
Well, it's a challenge we're looking. I mean, even just as we talk about our special events, I thought about this last year during the 4th of July Festival. We've discussed it as we move forward for Farmers Market 2023. A lot of vendors come in now. We live in a cashless society or a mobile society, want to bring their Square to scan cards or take some kind of Apple Pay situation, and they're running that off their AT&T. They can't, or it takes a very long time, especially in a large event. And so they just can't. So we're looking at, okay, how do we get Wi-Fi to vendors and that sort of stuff? So if they come in with a carrier that's not very good, we can make sure the sales go through and, crowds.
Maybe we need to invest in a mobile hotspot. Take the place of the AT&T tower. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. We did receive some advice midway through this process. Somebody asked the AT&T, the third-party representative that I was working with, well, what do I do to get AT&T to pay attention to this? And the advice we received was call AT&T, tell them, pick up the phone and call them, and when you can get service, and and tell them service is terrible here, and I want to quit your service because you guys won't, that's the kind of feedback that big corporations do actually hear, not if it's just one person, to be honest, but if a bunch of people call and say, look, this is not working for me. This is my town, and I'm going to switch, to you guys' point, I'm going to switch carriers if you can't figure this out.
Ironically, there's an AT&T store in the city of Tehachapi.
I wonder if they have service.
That spot does.
All right.
That spot does.
Probably because they're pulling it in through Wi-Fi or something.
They probably have Spectrum,
and frankly,
ground line or something
going
like that.
Going back to the, however many years I was a customer, the dead spots in this town were always the same. They are the same. I guarantee even the downtown issue has been around for 20 plus years. You drive out to Bear Valley, there was a specific spot where you'd lose your service, and there's you always knew the dead spots, and those dead spots did not change. And every carrier is going to have them, but there's been, I think, really a little done to change those. And then especially now, as more and more people rely on it, it's becoming a bigger issue because you need it for everything, not just your phone call, but it's being used for a bunch of other stuff.
So if you're an AT&T customer and you've got issue, call AT&T directly. Check your bill and call them.
Call customer service.
Yeah. You may end up bouncing to a different country, to deal with because they outsource a lot. And I remember that. Try and be patient, and get through to supervisory level to issue the complaint. Send them, find their email address and send that document to them saying, hey, you gotta take care of cell service here in this zip code, make it a priority.
And if you do that, maybe you provide the link of this podcast to the AT&T management.
There you go.
Yeah. So they know all the times that they've attempted to start a tower but have not yet quite finished or delivered.
Yeah. So go ahead and let them know. City of Tehachapi Development Services Department's ready. Just show up with your paperwork. We'll get you taken care of. But get it done.
Exactly. And sticking with our theme here of utility companies, communications, let's talk about what we've got underground, and let's talk about internet. Now you've got options and choices, but there is some construction going on with Race Communications, the city of Tehachapi. I think there's a little miscommunication going on out in the community and understanding. But Jay, can we kind of let's get an update on where we stand, what's going on, because they're digging, but not digging everywhere.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you live in the 93561 zip code, you've seen the construction. They were out in Bear Valley and Stallion a few years ago. Race was, and then now they've moved their plans here into the city in Golden Hills, and so it's kind of tough not to see it happening. A lot of work done in the city, a lot of positive work. A lot of the neighborhoods here have nearly reached completion on the installation of the underground conduit. They need to. That's the piece that we regulate. They then have to. So what you've seen if you've lived here in town, you've seen the conduit going in the ground. That's the empty conduit. We manage that through permitting. We work with the third-party contractors who do that install to try to make it right as they're doing it. And then at some point after, they come pull the fiber through that and then actually connect services up. So I don't know the timeline for that, although I think they're behind the schedule that they've previously sort of told the public they would be working on. Anyway, so we're doing a ton of that kind of stuff, and now we're sort of faced with, they've done maybe over half the city now, and I know they've done extensive areas of Golden Hills. We're down to kind of the older sections of the city where I think Race was really hoping to put a lot of their cable on the existing power poles because it's cheaper than placing them underground. That's presented, though, some new challenges that I don't feel like Race was necessarily ready for. The issue is simple. Poles have a capacity. I mean, it's a weird concept, right? But they have a weight capacity. They have the California Public Utilities
wind load.
Yep. Mm-hmm. The California Public Utilities Commission regulates those poles to make sure they're safe and that they're not just going to randomly fall over on a car, even in a major windstorm or a major snowstorm or ice. They're regulated, right? And for good reason. So they're safe. And so I think Race had assumed that they were going to be able to attach to all the older poles in downtown and go to town, but obviously, what's happened in the last 5 years that affected Edison?
PSPS.
Fires.
Fires.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what people don't know, and maybe you've seen it. This is actually the easiest way to describe it. Have you seen that new poles that are going in are way thicker? They're way bigger around diameter than the old ones are.
And sometimes they're coated with the black
they're fiberglass or metal.
And then pure fiberglass poles also.
Yeah. And those are all new regulations from the state of California that are designed to harden the system, right? We hear this term, but they literally means what it sounds like, which is to make it harder for them to fail, is to make them stronger. And so the problem is that older poles, especially in areas that are not prone to wildland fire, are just behind. They're not a top priority for Edison or PG&E.
So they've been in the ground for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years. They're old, they're crickety, and they just can't afford to allow more attachments.
And so the CPUC, by law now, has made them they're not even meeting the regulation for the strength they have to have today for what's hanging on the pole today. And so Race came along, and they're like, and Edison says, no, that pole's not, you may not hang a new cable on our pole. And so
now what?
Well, The answer is to underground the lines, in my opinion. That's what you do. If you want to get the service out, you pay the higher fee, you get the service in the ground, and you serve your customers.
Just like we're doing in all the new neighborhoods, right? Whether you're building a commercial development or a new neighborhood, you look around and you don't see these ugly power poles.
No, we don't put them in.
Everything is required to be underground. It looks nicer.
Yeah, exactly right. It's that simple. And but that wasn't part of the business plan, I think. I think the business plan was that they were going to get to use these old poles, which is cheaper than putting in the conduit. And so what they wanted to do was put in a whole bunch of temporary poles, or what we call buddy poles. And they're called buddy poles because they buddy up next to an existing pole. And so, everybody's seen those two in our community. They're all over the place.
In Golden Hills, on the way out to Cummings Valley, you see a lot of these. And man, it's just clutter. It's almost horrific. It's looking like a third world country in some areas of our valley because of these buddy poles.
Yeah, and it's an important fact. There's a little caveat in the law that regulates how these poles get built that allow them to be temporary in nature, right? So they're not as strong, they're not as big, they're not They're not regulated for quality of wood. Like maybe you guys have seen the bent ones that we've seen. Like they're not perfectly
There's one
straight.
somehow in my neighborhood. I don't know how it's standing up. It literally is bowed.
Yeah.
A buddy pole.
It is a bowed
It's a buddy
buddy pole. It's the shape of like a D.
And Jay, you know,
It's
you
amazing.
say temporary. We all know once a pole goes in, that pole's not coming out.
And that's the point of conflict we're having right now. And we're enthusiastic about race. And let me maybe stop and as an aside there and just say, I'm truly enthusiastic about race.
It's a good service.
It's a great service. Our customers have Spectrum now. Almost all the city can get Spectrum service.
Can they go on Spectrum poles?
No, Spectrum is already on a lot of these poles. They were there first, so
Or
they already paid the
typically Southern California Edison owns the pole, and then they rent space to AT&T, to
Spectrum.
Race, whoever.
Or the underground piece too. And
Or they
talked about
underground them.
on a previous podcast. AT&T, Spectrum, they did the underground many years ago. So if I'm Race and I go, hey, Spectrum, can I use your conduit? And they're like, yeah, right. So you can compete with us? No shot. Go put your own conduit in because that's what we did.
Race will steal customers from Spectrum for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that's a good thing, right? That competition is great for customers in this area,
Prices,
right? It's pricing and quality
service,
are going to be, and service are going to be big deals. But yeah, to that point, Key, I mean, like Spectrum already put the money in. I mean, it was Bright House, and who was the precursor to Bright House? Not Charter. Come on, give me the name. Come on, you guys. Nobody remembers.
Not Cox.
It was.
I remember Country Communications.
Country
First
Cable.
That was in Bear
Yeah,
Valley.
Country Cable was the first cable.
There
we
was
had
Spectrum
here.
only works at my house about half the time.
Spectrum-
It's always buffering. I don't know what
was it
that's
with
all
Bright
about.
House?
Buffer.
Yeah. Well, it's too many Netflix movies at one time, Greg.
No,
I
it's
remember
not
that,
even
man.
that. It's not even that. Just straight one TV.
Yeah.
But I'm
Teasing you.
being distracted here.
But yeah, so I mean, they've been around for years, right? They were the first cable company, and so they put the money in. They did the investment, and so while we're excited and supportive of Race's expansion, like if the answer is, hey, a bunch more power poles so that I can get Race out, so that I can compete with Spectrum, our concern is, and I think it's valid, is those poles aren't ever going anywhere. What would it take for them to go away? The answer is Edison has to replace their pole, and then somebody has to come back out and transfer the service from the temporary pole over to the permanent pole. And it's like, let's just be practical where Edison's at right now. That's 10 years away. Edison's got a mountain, billions they're spending on hardening their grid. So is PG&E, for good reasons, right? So we're working through it with them. I think that's our message is we're excited to have Race, but we don't want Race at the expense of the beauty of our town that we've spent so much time, money, and energy trying to improve. But
I think there's a balance,
There's a
right? I mean,
balance,
of course, you're going to maybe, upgrade poles. You're going to have a buddy pole here and there and this and that, but you can't just blanket say, we're going to add several hundred more poles and just put them in people's front yards.
And a lot of them do go. I mean, some of those neighborhoods they go in the backyard because there is no alley and
in
the
the
power
backyard. And I
in
think
some of those
residents would
neighborhoods.
say, hold on a minute, and my phone would start ringing, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing our job. We want to make sure that things are planned and executed correctly. I think, Corey, I heard you say the buddy pole in your neighborhood is in your front yard or somebody's
right
front
across.
yard.
There's two. Actually, I
It's
can
like,
see two from
if
my house.
somebody put a pole in my front yard, I think I'd have a little bit of a problem.
care
And
about
I've
that.
even heard that the pole will go in some areas, and then there's multiple anchors that come off the pole to keep
it
in
from
place.
falling over.
There was one co-located, and then they added another anchor to mine for some reason.
Because it started tipping, probably. Well, so
guess.
there's an important safety element to this too, right? So I talked about how the safety regulations for poles changed recently following what we learned, right? So engineers disaster happens, 10 years later, codes change, right? 5 years later, codes change. This is how engineers learn, right? And they make things better. This is just
Engineers don't make mistakes.
Yeah,
what are you
right.
talking about? Continue.
May I name a few? Anyway, but it's temporary poles are temporary by nature. They fall under a certain section of the code that anticipates them being removed in a very short period of time because they are not designed to stand. But the problem we've got is like if they go in, there's a genuine bona fide public safety concern that temp pole will be there 10 years from now. Yeah. And it will be, and that entire time there is a risk to the public around them that they're not going to survive.
And I had a conversation with someone at Coffee with the Mayor as well about the pole itself when it came to the SCE part. Maybe they even said some of the SCE poles, quote unquote, aren't even SCE poles because they came back from they got them from AT&T years ago. He started explaining this whole circle of life type of thing. And so anyway, it's very complicated. And so to your point, it may never get replaced because whoever owns that other pole is kind of out in the wind too.
Well, in the communications realm, it seems like it's going at lightning speed, pun intended,
Yeah.
right? But, you know, I was reflecting back to the 5G conversation a couple of years ago where the communication companies are trying to
SCE.
push, you know, 5G onto everybody. And it seemed, you know, on the surface, oh, that's great. Let's do it. But the reality is they wanted an antenna on every street corner.
Every pole.
And so cities started pushing back, including the city of Tehachapi, to the FCC.
Yeah, the FCC is the one who said you can't do anything.
Yes, federal
Right.
law.
And then we were overruled and this and that, but then it didn't happen. So it's always this ever evolving, you know, kind of storm.
And we adopt
quickly, but let's pause for us, not pause, but let's plan better.
We adopted an urgency
Maybe.
ordinance to deal with that one.
Yeah.
To make it sure that it's not, you know, on a light pole humming outside your bedroom window in a 2-story house.
I mean, literally,
or-
I say on every street corner, that was the concept. Every street corner was going to have antennas.
They only have about a 25-foot radius on those 5G antennas, so
Yeah.
they have to speak to a network of each other, a
Yeah,
bunch of repeaters.
they're literally
basically.
like a mesh network. Do you guys
Yep.
have those at your house? Like
Yeah.
those are just a really neat
Yeah.
concept where you put and you know, look, this is a tough thing, right? We are, to your point, like this little computer I carry around in my pocket, we've all talked about it, right? It's just this marvel of modern engineering, but it takes this infrastructure to support it. So it's not that none of this is a bad thing. This is an amazing part of modern society that,
Agreed.
you know, that the city has a role in making sure and facilitating us moving along with modern society at the same time. But you know, how do you find the balance,
but
right?
not to the detriment of
what is
kind of
existing.
fill in the
Right.
blanks.
Exactly right. That's you know. So we think the answer that we've given them, and frankly, the message has not changed. You know, my big frustration is that there's kind of new messaging out there that somehow Race didn't know this was coming. I can testify 18 months ago, I clarified for them we wouldn't be doing temporary polls.
Well, it seems to me
I
like,
can
you
second
know,
that.
whenever
I was
there's
in that
a
meeting. I
Yeah,
can second
whenever
that.
there's an issue in the public, whether it's within the city limits or outside the city limits, people love to just blame the city. You know,
Look, I'm
it's-
the no guy.
I mean,
We
we're-
joke about that
I mean,
around
we're
here.
government. We're born and bred as Americans to hate government, but that's not us. We want you to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, who we are, where we are, all of those things. We're providing answers to you, just like we're doing now. Right. And so we really strongly encourage people to call us so that we can tell you exactly straight from the horse's mouth what's going on.
And I think that's a part of that statement of responsible growth versus the growing just because we can.
Yeah.
And if we just can, we allow people just do whatever they want and things become unsightly.
Yeah.
And here we want to make sure that maintains that quality of life and that country feel. And, you know, I've seen some communications that have come from Race Communications to the community that say that you're withholding permits and they're not letting us go.
From
And-
Race.
From Race.
Oh, wow.
They
That's-
make those
that's
statements.
unfortunate.
to
How
the
many permits
community.
are you withholding,
That's
Jay?
super
I'm
unfortunate.
on one right now.
Yeah, one.
Like I've granted 3 or 4, I think we're up to now, and we're working on a couple others. We got one set that showed all the temporary poles after, again, 18 months ago, telling them we weren't going to permit that. And, you know, we've had a lot of conversations on the subject with Race, and, you know, it's been a good relationship, although on this issue it's getting frustrating because it doesn't seem like you believed us when we told you that this was
how
not
it's
going
gonna
to
be,
go,
yeah.
you know, and you didn't change the business plan. You didn't adjust the business plan for the reality of the city you're working in. But, you know, to Greg's point, just to revisit that, I think I'm of the opinion, and my own personal experience has borne it out, which is that 9 times out of 10, when I talk to somebody who, you know, maybe in a case like this, I just want Race, right? I don't like Spectrum. It's not a very good service. I'm excited about Race. My parents live in Bear Valley, and they have Race, and and I just want Race, Jay. What's going on? And they say, and I explain to them what we just talked about. 9 times out of 10, they go, "Oh yeah, okay, I get that. That makes sense. That's you. Yeah, please keep doing that. That's what we want." And so it's really easy. This is the curse of social media, right? It's really easy to make a statement that is quickly believed, like the city's holding this up. Well, of course the city's holding this up. Well, I am holding this up. That part of the statement is true enough, but not inappropriately. And, in accordance with our regulations, I am saying no to this and yes to this, for the benefit of our community. And I think that people, once they really know why something is happening, 9 times out of 10, they go, I get that. That makes sense.
And we also had we've had, Greg brought up the FCC pushing the 5G a few years back, trying to, make America more competitive in 5G. And so they tried to strip all the control away from a city. And then we found enough wiggle room to where we could have some control. But the same thing happened with this. Like we have these franchise agreements when it comes to whether it's a trash haul or whether it's a phone company, a cable company. Well, in 2006, the state of California said, we don't want you guys to have your own local control.
Imagine that.
Why would we allow that? Yes.
Yeah. Say that again.
Yeah.
We don't. The state of California does not want local control.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
We think the great idea is the Digital Infrastructure Video Competition Act, DIVCA is what it refers to. And basically, we'll handle all your franchise agreements for these companies like Race Communications moving forward. And then we'll just tell you when they decide to come in. Well, you were able to used to be able to use the franchise agreement as a way to sort of put this stuff in writing, in an agreement. You shall do this, you shall do this. Well, now that doesn't happen anymore, right? The state says you can go and do whatever.
Well, and there's a balance
like.
there too.
Right.
I mean, some local jurisdictions, they get super crazy. Let's be honest,
Yeah.
right? So you have to have some oversight. That's where the state comes in. That's where the federal government comes in. But they have certainly overstepped their bounds in so many arenas.
Yeah, they've made it tougher to make that agreement now.
Just to expand on that, though, for a second, people may not understand why a franchise agreement exists. So, like, you probably see it on your bill, by the way, franchise tax or something like that's on it. Well, just so you understand what that is, the city owns all the public roads here. I mean, that's the city's job, right? We own all the public spaces, all the public roads. A franchise agreement is an agreement that tells a private company, a for-profit private company, you can use our roads to install your infrastructure at no cost, but here are the rules. You're going to pay back to this community a portion of your profits for the benefit of the community, and we're going to regulate the how, why, shape, all that kind of stuff so that your utilities and our public roads are compatible with the purposes of the public roads. So this includes in downtown alleyways or public streets, and then of course all the public streets even extend to the sidewalks and that kind of stuff. So when we're doing our job, a franchise agreement is a really important tool for us to manage and work with the utility companies. They get free access to all the roads so that they can make money by serving you a utility. Right? And so there's a balance here. This is a relationship. And we need to make sure
that when they cut the road open, they put it back.
Yeah. Or your front yard. How many race customers have called us or property owners?
People come home and their driveway's been cut or the landscaping is screwed up, all that kind of stuff. And so those rules exist for good reason.
And just maybe I'd point out, if you have a problem, let us know. With race in particular or anyone else with disrupting your front yard. We've already received and dealt with probably 20 calls on that front. Just to maybe if I can do myself a favor so I don't instantly get 100 phone calls here is if you see if race has come through your neighborhood and they've kind of dug up some holes in the sidewalk and stuff like that and it clearly doesn't look like it's been properly repaired, that's because they temporarily repaired it and they'll be coming back in a couple of weeks to fix it permanently. So don't call me for that one.
Yeah, if it's blacktop right now inside of a concrete hole, it'll be concrete.
But But if it looks like an attempt has been made to permanently fix it, and you see something that's wrong with that, let us know. I mean, because I got an inspector, and while he's going around, he's monitoring and managing these issues. We've had to go back out and address problems at personal property. We will address those problems. If you contact us, we will take care of that. So don't get frustrated. Call us.
But I have to say, Race's crew that they've hired, I think it's a third-party crew.
Yeah.
When they're coming back to replace the landscaping or the concrete or the asphalt, they're doing a great job.
By and large, we're doing a good job.
Yeah, there's high expectations, and they're delivering a high quality
folks that did
product.
downtown, the patchbacks on the asphalt and the cutting they did an amazing job. I mean, it looked great. So yeah, they're a good decent crew.
It's working out. So if you're frustrated, don't be frustrated. You can get on Facebook if you want, but you'll get a lot better solution if you just give us a call. Yeah. We'll go out, take a look, and if it needs to be taken care of, then we'll get it taken care of. But yeah, to your point, Greg, credit to that contractor. We have found them very responsive to specific requests for things to get better.
And key, we play by the same rules, right? With our water company, with our sewer company that we own and manage, we play by those same rules. Repairing and replacing and maintaining, all those sorts of things.
You have to lead by example and set the standards and follow the standards, and it should be across the board. And that's what I expect when someone comes here and I think people learn that, that there are standards, there's rules, as you said, Jay.
Hey, Key, I drove by Anita Drive yesterday, and they were grinding and repaving Makes me so happy.
Yeah,
It looks
so-
really great, Jay.
So machine broke down last night.
Oh, no.
So they're not going to finish paving today.
Oh, well,
It'll be
but
tomorrow.
still, I mean,
It'll be
okay,
tomorrow.
but that's
We'll get it
fine.
done.
Okay, a little hiccup.
Hey, but you know what? It
But
was
my
like-
point was that we're investing in
Yeah, it's
our
great.
infrastructure. You know, Snyder turned out so nice, and all the different streets we did last summer. This summer, we have a lot of different streets, various streets. I think Elm.
Yeah, we're going to hit
Mulberry,
C Street and
Anita,
Elm, and then we're
C.
also working on a seal coat project where we're going to, like we did last year, we're going to hit a whole slew of neighborhoods. So with a seal coat, which is just an oil coat, basically. So
Which adds longevity
correct
to that pavement.
It's a
And then
rejuvenation, and it means just what it sounds like. It kind of it gives you 7 years of life. 5 years, 7 years of life is basically lifespan on a rejuvenation.
And shout out to Kern County Roads. They just
Yeah.
chip sealed Highline from Willow Springs all the way to Stallion Springs.
Yeah. Should I mention?
Looks so nice.
Never mind, I won't.
Let me go back to Anita's paving and talking with Andrew. Adjustments made since the Snyder project road paving last year, and watching what they were doing this year. Obviously it was two different projects, an apple and an orange.
Yep.
But roadway was being dealt with after school hours.
Yep.
So that way there were not safety concerns or traffic congestion.
Minimizing it is the best we can do, right?
Well, and this
Yeah,
week
but
was
yeah.
minimum days for the
Right.
kids, which
Yep.
couldn't have worked out better because it was early release. So about
Well, that
time
was part of the plan.
that
About
was
time
planned.
those
I mean, we
things
didn't-
have some value, you know.
Yeah, that's part of my point. Is it
That
was
broken
planned.
down piece of equipment's not part of the plan.
Yeah,
I'm just
well,
throwing that out
that
there,
is-
but we'll get her done.
Stuff happens.
Yes, it does.
But you did look at the calendars and said, hey, this is a great week. And you made that a part of the contract or the bidding process. Saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is the time factors you have to work within.
Right.
So the people are less inconvenienced. The road was open. So while they were doing half of the roadway, there was still access to get through. So that was something that I noticed too. And I was like, okay, there was a lot of thought and planning, listening to the community and making sure that as many things could be addressed as possible.
That was Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, there is a closure. So just,
A temporary though, not 24.
Well, and
it's manageable.
Yeah, and to give you a brief window into my mind, like when we do a closure, we can typically do it a lot faster than if we are maintaining traffic on that road. So we are constantly having those discussions. Myself, Andrew, Jason Wyatt, Don Marsh, the team public works director, we all get together and we kind of go, look, how are we going to crack this nut? Every street is unique. So if you see that closure, and it's particularly frustrating because I had that moment. I was on Highline yesterday after that power pole and they closed the road, and I was, kind of
Why'd they close the road?
cursing at my windshield a little bit, but look, it happens. I get it. It's
just closed, go around.
But just so you know what we're thinking, we don't close willy nilly. In fact, we are always trying to do the best solution for traffic in that location. And sometimes a closure it's more inconvenient, but a lot less time of inconvenience. So
Way more
that's-
efficient,
yeah.
and typically you're saving a lot of
We
dollars.
get a little money out of that too. Yeah, so that allows us to pave more road. There's no easy way to do these things, but we're proud of what we're doing around
We've
here.
got
We
a
think
lot
it's
of really
helping.
positive things happening in our city and our community.
These are the topics I just wanted to touch on that I kind of
I'm glad you
brought
called
forward.
us together to talk about this stuff.
'Cause I think when I listen to what's going on in the community, I think this is some of the things. There's unknown, or there's a version of telephone that takes place. So and so said this, and so said that.
Maybe next time on social media, when somebody has a question or comment, somebody can just refer them to a podcast.
Absolutely. And it's not only just social media. I mean, some of this came out of Coffee with the Mayor, conversations that Corey had independently, and I had conversations I have with when I get a chance to interact with people
Or
at
just
events.
call me.
We do pay attention. We listen, and then where we can get these answers, I think this was a good conversation to have, and hopefully it enlightens some people, and they get, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.
Yeah. So I'm late to a meeting to meet with the school district over a new pedestrian crossing right in front of the high school on Denison.
Oh,
So-
and grant funded?
Yeah.
Yes, I know
So
all
we're-
about it. It's super exciting.
We're about 30% of the way through the design.
And
so
that's going to be next summer 24.
if we can,
I know there's a lot of constraints with, when you receive a grant, somebody doesn't send you the money. They're processing and programming that money
there's about
for different fiscal years.
150 hoops to jump through, but
Yeah.
Can you make the crossing signs cell towers?
Yeah.
Just figured we'd solve
right.
that problem.
Well, I'll tell you what, on that note, let's wrap it. Jay's got business to take care of. I know you do too, Greg. Your calendar was pretty tight. Corey,
Well,
I
you
know
acting like I got nothing to do.
I was just
you
gonna
guys
say,
I see where you're going.
Corey, could you just get us lunch?
Can you get the heck out of here?
Yeah, my coffee's gotten cold, Corey. Come on, man. Help me out.
Blaming you guys for everything now.
All right, folks. Well, if
about
you've got a question about what we talked about or something else maybe we haven't talked about, send it to me at media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We appreciate the time you spend with us. Guys, thank you for taking the time.
Tehachapod is a conversation about Tehachapi designed for the people who live here or who would like to know more about this mountaintop community. If you have a question you would like answered, email media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We will try to answer it on a future episode of Tehachapod.